Hail, Internet! It's Paul. It's Matt, the Dork Lords. We are here talking about The Lazarus Project, Season 1, Episode 1. This show actually originally aired in 2022 on the British network Sky Television. It's now been picked up by TNT. I have only watched the first episode, but I think you, Paul, maybe have watched the entire first season?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Correct.
Getting that out of the way. All right, so we open with our protagonist, George, waking up on the morning of July 1st, 2022. He has a loving relationship with his fiancée, Sarah, who announces eventually there that she's pregnant. He gets a loan to finance his new app, Hazard Lights, which aggregates data to make financial predictions. Life seems to be going well. 6 months later, life is not going well. There's a global pandemic. So
sounds familiar.
Very, very not well. Yeah, it did sound familiar. And he and his wife are sick. And then he suddenly wakes up 6 months earlier, back on July 1st. We end with George waking up for the second time on July 1st, 2023, after a nuclear explosion. And his wife is killed in a traffic accident, which he indirectly caused. We'll talk about that. But Paul...
She's killed?
Oh, did we not know? Okay, good point. She's struck by a large truck, which I assume meant she died. Okay, this is news to me. She survived. All right, very good. Good on you, Sarah. Okay, wow, well, that changes things because I thought that was going to really affect the plot, but okay. Paul,
yes.
What did you think of episode 1?
I really liked it. I liked the characters and I liked the situation. Thankfully for me, all the episodes were there for me, so I could just watch as much as I wanted, and I watched quite a bit that first night. I liked the premise, and I liked how everything went, and I liked the performances. I liked it. Yeah, so the sci-fi setup is that there's some astronomical event, some kind of singularity that I guess occurs every year on July 1st? No,
like that?
No,
it's
something whereby they can use that in order to make time go by.
So essentially the Lazarus Project harnesses this event and it rewinds Earth's history back to the preceding July 1st, if necessary. For instance, in this episode, they successfully handle the pandemic, and so George wakes up July 1st, 2023. So it's kind of like the end of Groundhog Day. Oh, look, the next day is here. But now that they're in 2023, once there's this big nuclear explosion and they jump back in time, they can't go back to 2022 anymore.
Right.
So it's all recent history stuff. They can't just leap, we have a problem? Well, let's go back 5 years and fix it. No, they can't do that.
Yes.
So it's always within a few to several months. And yeah, this first episode did a lot of heavy lifting.
Yeah, it did.
Characters, it's a large group. We had to introduce the rules of this world, which are important to know.
Yes.
And I think it did it quite well. I would say at the moment, it feels somewhat familiar. It feels a little like Men in Black or Wanted, maybe even The Matrix. You've got secret group, keeping the world from falling apart. Protagonist is the raw talent, needs training.
The Matrix?
Cue the montage. Well, it's like he's the new guy. Neo comes in. Oh, look, you got to learn how to do all this stuff.
And that Broadway, I guess, yes, but he's not the he's not the chosen one or anything.
Okay. Although
he's not their leader
only
either.
People who can innately use this power.
Yeah, but that doesn't give him any, special benefits in the group.
Right. Right. It's not an exact time. But I'm just saying.
Shiv has been at that same situation, but for much longer.
But also, based on how positive you are about this series, having you seen this whole season.
That's true.
I got a feeling this isn't boilerplate, secret group saves the world stuff. I have a feeling there's more to it. If I had to guess, if I looked into the mind of Paul, a series that Paul would enjoy, I have a feeling there's some twists to come in this series.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're right in that this event at the end of the season is important. And the episode, is important.
Okay. Something I might have suspected, but was confirmed, is that even if you die during the year in question that you're in, if the Lazarus Project hits reset, you'll be alive back on July 1st.
Yes.
For instance, Archie, who's our mentor character, she's George's mentor.
Yes.
She shows us that. She dies.
Yes.
But, July 1st, they go back to July 1st, and she calls George.
Yes.
So death is not necessarily the end for these folks.
Yeah, unless they get to the next checkpoint and,
Right, exactly. But that's
so if they die and they don't reset, they're dead.
Heaven forbid you died at 11:59 on June 30th. You're like, oh, man. So I've got to think that George, okay, now I'm thinking about this. I was going under the assumption that Sarah's dead. You've kind of changed this around for me. I thought, let's assume for a second Sarah was dead, that he would want the Lazarus Project to hit reset before July 1st of 2024 so that Sarah would be alive again. But maybe, okay. Well, maybe that's not the thing. Okay. Because he would feel her loss, not just because he's the love of his life, but also he has to feel guilty.
Yeah.
He simply forgot to save her.
Yes, that's
like,
right.
Oh,
it's like, he saved her before. She would be dead if it weren't for him. He just should have put that down on his list of things to do.
You know what? And I was thinking that very same thing. I get it. If you make a list, the list disappears. But you're one of these Lazarus Project guys.
Yes, that's true. Yeah,
right. Throughout the year, as you start July 1st, everything that's important that occurs to you, you should be freaking diarying it.
Yes.
And then June 30th, assuming you get that far, whatever, read it. You read everything you did. Okay, remember that? Oh, right. I got to get hit by a truck. I got to remember that. And then so then a few hours later, you wake up, you remember it all, fresh in your mind, and you save your wife from being hit by a truck. All right. Anyway, there you go. He didn't do that. But not only did he, know the accident was coming and got distracted.
Yes.
This accident is an indirect result of him doing this petty punishment
of
Carl.
Yes.
And Carl is his rival for
the attention. Yes.
There's a version of the 2022 where she marries Carl.
Yeah. Or at least dates him.
Or at least dates him. Good point. George knowingly gives Carl bad investment advice.
Yes.
Carl, admittedly, foolishly, just goes all in on it.
Yes.
Like, what? Guy mentions a name at a dinner table. You're like, all right, I'm committing my life savings, but he does. Loses a ton of money, gets angry with George.
Yes.
By proxy at Sarah. The resulting confrontation puts Sarah in the path of an oncoming truck. And what I like about that twist is that the show could have just had Sarah die randomly, right? You could be, oh no, she died.
Yes,
but now I have to let her die in order to keep this future going, whatever. I can imagine a scenario like that. But instead, it's more of this with great power comes great responsibility theme, right?
Yes.
We see that George can be vindictive. He's not just lawful good guy.
That's true.
He's got the capacity. He could have just said I don't have any tips for you, Carl.
Yep.
But instead he's like, let me intentionally give him terrible advice.
Yes.
Oh wow.
Yes.
All right.
Yes,
so he could be, he could be a bit of a dick.
Yes.
If push comes to shove.
Yes.
So that's interesting. That's cool character stuff for him. He's not the perfect hero kind of guy or whatever. So that was all good. The character development is very interesting. If I were to try to mat somebody, in the show,
yes.
I don't know if he's. It's a tough one. Because it looks like there's going to be a season 2, by the way, of this show.
Yes,
So
it does.
Just a single
Thankfully.
season miniseries. There will be a season 2. So characters who might die in season 2 as well as season 1.
That's true.
But if I were to pick a character right now that's something bad has to happen to this guy.
Yes.
It's the other guy with the innate
Shiv.
ability to do this.
Okay.
Shiv.
All right.
Exactly. So
interesting.
I feel like Shiv is kind of the canary in the coal mine for George.
Okay.
These are the only 2 guys on the show so far. There's probably more, but the only ones we've been introduced to that innately have this ability.
Yes, innately, yes.
Everybody else has to be trained in some weird way.
Sure.
So there has to be a distinction between the 2. Shiv has already talked about all this emotional trauma that he's faced constantly repeating world's events.
And he does not accept George's new status in the same
He
shoes.
does not. Yeah, he's kind of against him anyway. But he's also just... He's humorless.
Yes.
He's depressed, essentially.
Yes.
So I think he's going to meet a bad end. Now, either maybe he becomes so depressed he's suicidal. Maybe he's fatally reckless. Or maybe he becomes kind of like the next Reborov. Reborov is this guy who apparently used to be in the group, but now he's the villain. Now he's on the outside buying nuclear bombs.
That's who Reborov is.
So whichever the way that breaks down, I think Shiv's negative outcome will be a cautionary tale for George. That's kind of how I see that.
All right.
All right, just throw that out there.
We'll go right ahead.
Okay, probably completely wrong, but that's fine. Action scenes are interesting. They've got. I'll say this: they kill some cops.
Oh,
they're not. I mean, I suppose indirectly, but it's like high-speed car chase. Cop car gets squished to the side by a camper and gets impaled on this pillar. And you're like, those guys are dead. Those guys are dead. You just killed cops. But it looks cool. They do the slow motion cars spinning. So they pay attention to the action scenes. And so it's a cool crew. We meet the crew, the Dane. The leader of the group is Wes.
Yes.
I'll say this, another little interesting procedural point about the rules of this thing. It's kind of like, at this moment anyway, it's up to Wes to go like, Code Black, reset.
Right, yes, he's the one in charge.
Nuclear explosion come. So it feels like there's a small group of people, and there's no automatic safety thing that goes on. Like, they have to manually trigger this, and it's not like, oh my God, everybody died. Well, the machine will just cue it and put us back. They have to actually do it.
Yes.
Meaning, if you were, let's say, Reborov, and you're like, well, I want to make sure they can't redo it. Oh, I know how. Kill all the people involved, and then they can't redo it.
Correct.
So anyway, just say there's a limitation again to how effective this team is.
Yeah. It's nice to see Angeli, who plays Archie. I assume that's how you say her name, but of course we saw Archie in The Peripheral, so it's nice to see Archie again.
Right. Okay, I was like, where did I see? Okay,
yeah. She plays the daughter, the android daughter that Connor wants to marry.
So she's obviously got some stunt abilities as well.
Oh, yeah, sure. I'm curious how you feel about the time travel aspect of this.
Right, because I'm always like, time travel takes out the stakes.
Yep.
And time travel in this case does take out the stakes because, like, for instance, Archie's back.
Right,
okay,
true.
But, I'm seeing this thing with Shiv's comments about how having to relive this trauma over and over again. I could kind of see where they might be going down the road of people who have to constantly repeat the same, let's say, 6 months over and over again, start feeling the weight of these decisions they have to make. They can't tell anybody. They can't, rely on something. They have to see terrible things happen, but they're not terrible enough that they warrant pushing the button. And so maybe that's where these stakes come in. Like they're tied to this anchor point, and there's only so many things. It has to get terrible for them to actually make a change. And so the world could be like 90% terrible.
Yeah, well,
let it run.
He mentioned an event that we're all very familiar with that they didn't turn time back for, and that's 9/11.
Right. Oh, and they did actually apparently turn it back for COVID.
Yes.
They were like, oh yeah, that's why we got the vaccine so fast.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, so.
Yeah. So any number, 9/11 is pretty bad, and they didn't turn it back for that. So.
Right. So it just the idea that people having to witness that kind of tragedy, knowing they could do something about it, but probably won't, might affect you negatively over time.
Right.
And so maybe that's kind of one of the stakes that we feel.
And you're right. At this point, she's been hit by a truck, and
she being Sarah. Okay.
Sarah, and I'm just saying events play out after that, but she could die.
Okay. So you're not saying she doesn't die. You're just saying at the beginning of episode 2, she's hanging on.
Yes.
She's probably at a hospital or something.
Yes.
So hopefully for George's sake, she pulls through.
So the power of going back in time is only really technically in Wes's hands. Whether or not they go back in time is not up to any of them. And,
right, great point.
And also
George
too,
isn't like, oh, something bad happened, go back in time.
Right. And while in a number of situations you might have someone go back in time, and then all the other people are doing whatever they're going to do, hoping that you'll change the past for them, and then the present will change. Everyone goes back on the whole planet.
Right.
It's just these people know that they've gone back, and so they can change things. So that's a little different than some time things that we've seen.
Now, something that I thought might be a plot point, probably not right away, but it's interesting that George, while he has the innate ability to sense that the time has been shifted,
right,
he didn't notice it until he was already well into his adulthood.
Yes,
I just wonder if there's a reason why suddenly he had this power. If that's maybe some kind of a hidden plot point at some point. But,
I mean, I can tell you that it's not this season.
Okay, all right. It's not a season 1 plot point. Season to be determined later. All right. Also, another thing they did mention is Reberov is not the only guy who used to be in Lazarus Project and is now
that's
against
true.
them.
Yeah.
Like, he's just like, oh, he's just the worst one. You're like, oh,
yes.
Your program doesn't sound that successful then. If you've only got like 6 people that are actually in it, and you've got like, I don't know, many, but a multiple number of people that have gone like, no thanks, I want to destroy you now. Like, man, okay, get some better benefits or perks or something. I don't know. The karaoke's apparently not a big enough perk. Yeah, when they successfully complete a year, I guess they're like, yay!
Yes,
or they
that's
save
right.
the earth.
They get a celebration.
Karaoke.
Yeah,
it's an intriguing show. I like it. It's a fun sci-fi premise that I think they are putting enough limitations on the time travel aspect that it doesn't feel like the time turner in Harry Potter. It's like, I just turn the time. Oh, we're back.
Yep,
okay,
yep.
So for that reason, yeah, it's cool, and yeah, the characters are compelling.
Yeah, and one of the things I would point out, George did not take it well when.
Oh, great point. We should talk about just for a second that. So everything goes to hell.
Yes.
And then he's suddenly back, and he's got a chance to change things, but he's, first of all, depressed that the world's about to end. He knows it's coming, but he comes off as like this incredibly paranoid, apocalypse prepper guy.
Yes.
And so he drives away Sarah.
Yes.
And he's living in a plastic suit, and he's hoarding canned. Whatever. Anyway, so yeah, it's not a good look for him.
Yeah.
And yeah. So again, we see that capacity that he's not just like, I can take whatever comes.
Yeah.
He is vulnerable. He's a vulnerable human being.
Yes, I think that's an important aspect of his character. And the fact that you saw his 2 different versions of his relationship. So when he got the app accepted and got the money, they got married and she got pregnant. Yeah. But once he starts acting like a paranoid idiot, she's like, I am out of here.
Yeah. And also because he didn't get the job and they weren't set up financially, she's like, maybe we should wait for a kid. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, so it all plays out quite differently. And you're right. He scares her quite a bit, and she's justifiably like, I think I'm out of here.
Yes.
He's crazy. So cool. All right, we'll be back for episode 2. Thank you as always, Paul.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it, good sir. And we'll talk to everybody next time.
Bye.
Bye.